Hey there, welcome to this episode, and today we want to look at pad mutes, how to set those up, and kind of how they work, because it's a little bit interesting. Now, if we go to pattern select here, I'm going to use a pattern so that we can kind of demonstrate this, and it's a very simple 2-bar drum loop. I'm going to turn it on, and then I'll keep talking over the top. Now, as you can see, it's a very simple 2-bar loop. Now, if we wanted to sort of mute some of the samples while this is playing, we can do that on the fly by doing pattern select, coming back into kind of sample view here, and doing shift and reverse, which kind of turns all the pads white and makes them mutable essentially. So when I press a pad now, it's going to mute its sound and it will turn red. So I'm just going to do that on the fly. And you can see how you can kind of create these like nice, interesting little moments. So that's a fun way of doing it. And as I said, we're doing that kind of on the fly. What we can also do is we can record that motion. So a bit like an automation. However, it works a little bit differently. It's not like baking that into the pattern. And I'll explain that as we go along. So in order to do that and kind of record the motion so that it's automated and it's looping around, we press record here and we're essentially going back into our pattern to record again. Now we do shift and reverse, and if you notice when I press remain here, I'll turn it off and on. It is enabling this mode and disabling it. And I'm going to turn it back on. And now it stays lit up white here. We can take our hand off the, the shift and reverse buttons, and we can now tap in our pad mutes and record that motion. So let's just do that very quick. I've only got 2 bars, so I'll just mute it in a couple of places. And hopefully you'll notice as it comes back around, it has recorded that motion and now it's doing it automatically. But what's interesting about it, if we exit out of here, just watch what happens when I exit right out. Even if I press into rehearsal mode and then exit all the way out, you will notice it turns that mode off and our sample, our pattern, goes back to how it was before without any of those mutes applied. Now I'm just going to stop this for a second. So what is happening here is we are recording an automation like a motion, but it's not baked in to that pattern. So it is something that we can turn off and on. It's not going to be playing that pattern with those pad mutes continuously. It's something that we can enable. So if we go back to the pattern here for a second, turn it on, it's going to be playing as it was. Let's go back out of this view for a second. Now when I do shift, reverse and remain, those mutes come back, and shift, reverse and remain, they disappear again. So we are essentially recording the automation, like that motion of that, but it's not a permanent thing that is applied, which is quite nice because you can turn it off and on throughout your track. Various different, settings or different patterns that you could kind of create here. And yeah, you could have these like pad mutes kicking in whenever you sort of feel like throughout your track. So I think that's really creative and really fun. Now, one last thing here, if we just do shift and exit so we can stop. Let's say you've recorded some motion that is now saved to that particular pattern. You don't like what you've done here, you're going to want to undo that. So what we do is we go into pattern select here, we choose the pattern. Let's stop that for a second. Let's do pattern edit here. Then we can do delete and reverse, and we delete that motion that we've just recorded. So that pad mute motion has now been erased, and we could start again and create something new. So essentially, that is how you create pad mutes, how you create interest. But bear that in mind, it's not something that is baked permanently to the pattern in the sense that it is always going to play. It is an effect, a motion that you can enable by doing shift, reverse and remain here to turn it off and on whilst that pattern is playing. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.